But drawing the most scrutiny is the part of the motion that asks Ottawa to recognize the state of Palestine. As you heard just a moment ago, the Foreign Affairs Minister says that goes against Canada's foreign policy, which is in favor of what's known as a negotiated two-state solution, essentially recognizing a Palestinian state and the state of Israel after the two parties negotiate, not before. That vote, as I mentioned, takes place in just about, I wrongly said 90 minutes. It's actually 2.5 hours. I need to get my math straight. We did invite the government, Conservatives and NDP to join our program to explain their position to Canadians. The Tories declined our invitation, but Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader Kevin Lamoureux is here, as is the NDP's Foreign Affairs critic Heather McPherson. Thank you very much, both of you, for making the time for the discussion. I appreciate it. I normally start with the government, but it's the NDP's motion today. So if you don't mind, Mr. Lamoureux, I will start with Ms. McPherson. And I wanted to start off on that question of Palestinian statehood and the recognition that this motion asks that this motion asks for the recognition of the Palestinian state. I heard Mr. Singh today frame it as this vote kind of as either or. If you vote for it, you support peace. If you don't vote for it, you don't support peace. Does your party see the only way to express support for peace as voting for the state of Palestine?
So first of all, there are 9 pieces to this motion, as you mentioned. But for us, that last piece of this is the state of Palestine and the recognition of the state of Palestine. Now, this has been done by 139 United Nations member states. This is something that the United States and the UK have already indicated that they're going to be looking at. Spain has, in fact, the Spanish Prime Minister has asked their parliament to recognize the state of Palestine. This is something that Canada should have done a long time ago. You know, as somebody who's been working with regards to this conflict for a very long time, I've never really understood how you can expect to have a two-state solution if you don't recognize that there are 2 states. Netanyahu is a right-wing extremist who has already said that he will not recognize the state of Palestine. So to have the Canadian government then say, we're waiting for Netanyahu to recognize Palestine is a little bit absurd. Frankly, we have to be able to move forward on this if we want a peaceful resolution that will make the Middle East more peaceful, safer for Palestinians and for Israelis.
Let's just unpack a little bit of what you said there before I bring in Mr. Lamoureux. It's true that there are, I think you said 139 member UN countries who have made that declaration. None of them are among the G7. Canada would be the first to do so. When you reference the UK and the US, there have been expressions by Joe Biden, expressions by David Cameron that they intend to consider it. That's not the same as saying we will do it. This would be a break in foreign policy. Do you understand the foreign minister's point that essentially this isn't the appropriate way to make that break?
So listen, what we're dealing with right now is a war in Gaza, a war on Gazans against Palestinians where over 30,000 people have lost their lives. 13,000 of them are children. There is an urgent need for this government and for Canada to do more than we've maybe done in the past. I mean, obviously, what the world has done in the past to ensure a safe and secure Middle East hasn't been successful. It is right now, Gaza is the most dangerous place in the world to be a child. There are 9 things that Canada could do today that they are absolutely able to do, this Canadian government today, that would help to stop the carnage that's happening in Gaza. The world is standing by. Well, people in Gaza are starving to death.
But is it fair to characterize the government as doing nothing in that respect? I mean, many of the items, for example, that you list in those 9, the government has done. It has reconstituted funding for UNRWA. It has said that it will bring in Palestinians. It's just very difficult to get them out. Like, how does recognizing the state of Palestine actually make things better for those people who are so immensely suffering, as you rightly point out?
Yeah, well, there are 9 things in here that have to happen. We have to stop selling arms to Israel. We have to stop sending arms to Israel. And we have to guarantee. That's part of the motion that I think that the Liberals are actually having troubles with. That's a red line for me. That's a red line for our party. But there are many things in this motion. Get humanitarian aid in. You know, right now, the government is engaging in food drops, aid drops. That is the least efficient way to get food to people who are starving to death right now. It is the least efficient. We need to get those trucks moving. The government could do more to push that forward, to work with our allies. I mean, I don't expect Canada wouldn't be working with our allies on this. We want to see some concrete action. These are 9 steps that the government could take today, and I don't understand why. You know, we did not write this motion as a poison pill, as a gotcha. We wrote this motion because it adheres to international law. It adheres to what we've heard from international experts, that there's nothing in here that the government should have trouble supporting.
So let's ask Mr. Lamoureux. First of all, is this a vote in which your party will vote together, or is it a free vote?
You know, I think that Canadians as a whole is reflected within the government caucus. There's diverse opinions on all sides of the issue. And, we look at the issue, and it's very much a heart-wrenching issue. You know, people watching the CTV news or social media or other types of media outlets see and have a better appreciation in terms of what's taking place in the Middle East today. And there is a great deal of attention that's being focused on it. And as a result, Canadians are engaged, and so is the Liberal caucus. And we will continue to, articulate. You've been watching some of the debate that's taking place today inside the chamber. It will continue on for a while yet, and there will be a vote in due course. And that's when MPs of all stripes will come and show up to vote.
Am I to take, though, from the comments from, for example, the Foreign Affairs Minister, that Cabinet will not vote in favor of the motion, but that it's a free vote, I take from your comments, among backbencher MPs?
Yeah, no, I would not make that assumption.
No?
I think that what we should be looking at is at the end of the day, as I pointed out, the government caucus is very much reflective of how Canadians are feeling. And the minister's comments earlier today, I think, are reflective of the values that Canadians have. So, for example, when you're talking about the two-state...
With respect, I think Canadians want to know where your government stands on the issues the NDP has put forth. That's what I'm asking. Does she represent the government's view of what the NDP has put forward?
The Minister of Foreign Affairs, and during the voting process, we will find out where individual members of Parliament are going to land on the issue. I think there's ongoing discussions, whether it's members of Parliament with constituents or individuals with other members of Parliament, as we try to formulate what's going to actually take place on the vote. And that's why I'm going to refer back to the comments that were made by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Minister Joly was very clear today. You highlighted one of them in regards to the negotiated two-state solution. That is not just a Liberal government. This has been a policy of governments from today and from the past here in Canada. And we continue to have that need and desire to work with our allied countries and to take a look in terms of what it is that we're hearing from constituents, from Canadians. All of us have received literally thousands of emails and have witnessed protests and heard many different opinions on this.
Okay, let me then, since it's not clear where the government stands at this point, and I'll take you at your word that we'll watch to see what the vote happens, let me ask you, as someone who does represent the government, and in your own view, what the NDP has put forward is the idea that, like the UK and like the US, the reality is it doesn't seem like a negotiated solution is possible at this point, right? I understand the endorsement of a two-state solution, but the leader of Israel has unequivocally said he does not endorse such a thing. If that isn't possible, what is the harm in staking out a position for Canada at this point, especially when our allies are considering doing the same? Will your government consider that position?
I think what would have been nice, with all due respect to Heather, is at the end of the day, I would have liked to have seen a resolution being developed on the floor of the House of Commons in which all members would be able to get behind that resolution. If you take a look at the impact, that it has in Canadian society today, there's a lot of hard feelings. There's a lot of racial tension that is there. Sending a collective decision coming out of the House of Commons, I think would have done more service to Canadians and provided more unity with having Canada speak with one voice.
Very quickly, though, I want to get Ms. McPherson back in another comment for you. That didn't answer my question. Why can Canada not consider staking out a position when it appears that negotiation is not possible?
Well, you know, the Minister of Foreign Affairs is in constant dialogue with our allied countries and others in terms of trying to stake out a position that will ultimately see peace and see children not being shot at, and we support through humanitarian support supplies as quickly as possible. We all care deeply and passionately about the children and what's taking place in Gaza. We want to see it come to an end. But there are certain things in which she's privy to at the discussions that are happening with respect to the Middle East, and I will continue to follow her lead on this issue.
Ms. McPherson, just one comment from each of you, if you don't mind, before we go. The point that Mr. Lamoureux is making about the consideration given to all factors. The government has not done nothing in delivering aid, or I think it's fair to take them at their word that they are just as worried, let's say, about the situation that has unfolded in Gaza. Why is it necessary for them to vote for that last item around the statehood of Palestine in order to, be as genuine as your party on that issue?
I mean, honestly, it's so frustrating. The people in Canada, the Palestinian Canadians, are looking at this government treat their human rights as less than other people's human rights. We've seen this time and time again. For them to just get recognition that their human rights, that their identity matters, they have to beg for that.
But it's not that simple, right? I don't think that the government is saying your identity doesn't matter.
We're looking for moral clarity from this government.
But there are huge geopolitical ramifications to that.
For them to declare that they recognize that Palestine is a state aligns them with other countries, with 139 other countries.
But none in the
It's
G7.
not standing alone. And in fact, it is something that they could be working with the US and the UK on. This is recognizing that Palestinian human rights matter. And Palestinians across this country are looking at the way that Canada applies the law, that Canada responds to conflicts in Ukraine and other places so differently. And they would be right to say that this government is not applying international laws, not supporting the International Court of Justice equitably in all circumstances, and that's wrong, and it's putting the Liberal Party in a difficult position.
Last word to you, Mr. Lamoureux, and I do understand that voting in favor of something like recognizing the state of Palestine would counter or go against the foreign policy that you set out. But why can your government not be more explicit about the level of consideration it is willing to give that proposition at least?
We're giving consideration to all things ultimately, but at the end of the day, we have to think in terms of the weeks and months and years ahead. And Canada does have a role to play into the future of what takes place in the Middle East. We have demonstrated in the past, and we have a great opportunity in the future. We have to be able to respect.
Point, it hasn't gone well so far, clearly, if we're at this point. Is there maybe a different approach necessary?
I think that Canada is playing a very strong role, in leadership role, in its discussions and dialogue that it's having with the other countries, in particular our allied countries, the G7 and others, as we continue to do what we can and carry the influence that we have to try to ensure that there's humanity being delivered in terms of food and medical supplies, again through UNRWA, and making sure that there's more diligency that's there. We're doing what we can to advocate for peace, and we would like to see the hostages returned. I think the position that we have taken, led by our Minister of Foreign Affairs, is responsible, and it shows and clearly demonstrates that Canada wants to be involved in resolving this issue, not only in the short term, but also into the long term.
Okay, I have to leave it there. There's a lot of room for way more discussion. I appreciate both of you making the time for this discussion tonight. Thank you. Kevin Lamoureux and Heather McPherson.